Welcome back to the Predictable Revenue Podcast. I'm your host, Collin Stewart. Today I'm joined by Gil Quadros Flores. I apologize for butchering that. He's the founder and CEO over at CoGrader, and we're going to talk product market fit. Before we jump in, this episode's brought to you by our founder coaching program. Founders, let's be real. Scaling a company is harder than anything, at least I had done before when I first started. You got to juggle product, revenue, hiring, somebody suing you, hopefully trying to negotiate them not suing you anymore. And then you got to figure out how to keep the thing growing without getting stuck in the rut. And so what if you had somebody that could help you navigate this gas? Maybe somebody who's been there, done that before. That's what we're building a predictable revenue. Founders, coaching founders, specifically about revenue. If that sounds interesting, give us a call, send us a homing pigeon. Welcome to the Predictable Revenue Podcast, where sales leaders teach you what's working for them so you can build it yourself. Now the episode. Gil, welcome to the show. I'm looking forward to hearing your story, and I'd love to start with where the idea for CoGrader came from.
Okay, Colin, and thank you for having me. Started with a quick jump in investment fund in London, then went on to a quick jump in McKinsey in Colombia, but then ended up going back to Europe, where I worked in a huge corporate for a couple of years. Really felt that I needed to do something useful and fast and see the contributions of my work into something that I could actually feel, touch, and sense that impact. And so I left, and for a year, I studied biodiversity in the sea in Mexico, studying whales. Then I helped start a permaculture farm in Costa Rica. Then I had a quick shot at London doing some art sales dealing. I was trying to find what in the world I would do that would be interesting. Ended up helping a friend with some consulting, and he had a startup that had been stagnant maybe for a couple of years already, not growing at all. And I joined as a consultant, and within 9 months we grew it X. And it was the first time in my life where I was like, wow, we did stuff and input generated outputs that I can see.
There's nothing more magical.
It's an amazing feeling, whatever it is, just going from, seeing a transformation on something which very clearly you can understand what happened and what you did to contribute is a very good feeling. I think all of us humans want to feel needed and useful. And so eventually I found, being a founder is probably the most exciting thing. And for 2 years, I managed to have 3 startups where I picked the wrong founders first, then the wrong problem, then the wrong markets. Got a bunch of learnings like most of us do. And I decided to join someone who actually knew what they were doing. And so I joined Justice, which fortunately went on to raise the largest Series A ever in Latin America. Good old 2021, where you could raise 36 million pre-revenue.
That's a good chunk.
That's a good chunk. And at the time, that obviously attracted amazing talent. That's where I met my co-founders. Then suddenly ChatGPT disrupts the world in November 2022. I go super deep down the rabbit hole. I'm using it every day, all the time. I'm coaching people and giving out workshops. And I realized this is my .com moment. I'm in the right point in life where I have literally 15 ideas of how I could make something useful for society and make a big organization from it. And that's kind of when CoGrader was born.
Amazing. It does kind of feel like, I got my first company started in 2012, and I felt like I was late to SaaS. SaaS had already kind of happened. And then there was kind of an echo of that happening where it was like SaaS 2.0 almost. Also, your bio, your intro sounds like the cover story for a secret agent in a Bond film.
Why?
How many passports do you have, and where do you keep them on your mini yachts?
Exactly. No, I've been searching a lot, trying to find, what's the right job for me, what makes me happy. And it's interesting. I'm, if you know the Enneagram, I'm pretty much a 7, and I'm searching for freedom. And as I search for freedom from anything, but also from work, I find myself working 12-hour days, which is a very interesting paradox that I feel happens to a lot of us.
I worked for my last two. There are 2 companies I worked for that I started my career in. Not the first 2, but 2 of the influential ones. I worked for different founders. And they said the luxury of being a founder is that you can work any 24 hours a day you'd like. And I was like...
But it is amazing. It is amazing to pick whatever 24 hours you want to work. It really is. I really value that.
100%. 100%. So you have 15 different ideas. You're playing with ChatGPT in 2022. Were you playing with the API before ChatGPT launched? Was it your ChatGPT moment that got you like pointed in this direction?
ChatGPT moment, November 2023, it dropped down. And I think for 2 weeks, I probably spent 100 hours with that thing. I was just marveled at everything it could do. I wanted to use it better. I wanted everyone to use it. I still find it amazing how far we are from good utilization.
Mhm.
I see very sophisticated people around me using it in very basic ways versus its capabilities. So I still feel it's day zero. But there was something in me that told me, Zappos built an e-commerce and they started in 2006. So I don't believe about losing the wave when it's such a big disruption like AI. Like there
Mhm.
will be amazing AI companies that will be founded in 5-10 years. However, all the folks that started working with e-commerce, in the 90s, I think they had a leg up if they survived long enough for e-commerce to become big, right? Think
Mhm.
Amazon. And so I thought it was the right moment. I had a few ideas. And at the time, I realized disruption was so intense that I wanted to do one of two things. Either a sector that leverages LLMs or something that is inherently protected from LLMs, such as physical work. I feel there's probably a 5, 10, 15-year horizon where, because of hardware, we're still limited in some of that aspect. And so I
Mhm.
thought a lot about businesses in both of these spectrums. And so for CoGrader specifically, the reason why one is I ended up buying a flight. I was checking online, where are the most teachers? I want to be, surrounded by teachers. I want 1,000 teachers around me. And
Mhm.
luckily, the next day, the biggest conference of EdTech, and maybe in the world actually, that happens in the US called ISTE, it's actually happening next week again, was happening the next day. And so I bought a
Mhm.
flight the next day to Philly. I land in Philly, and I'm in this 30,000 people conference, and I just sit down like, I don't know, maybe I think there were like 60 teachers at the time, and I just sat them down and asked them, what keeps you up at night? I'm like, I'm going to build this startup by the book. Like I've done, enough mistakes. I'm going to do this by the book. And
Love it.
the same themes kind of came up. So these were I hate grading. It takes away my soul. It's crippling. The behavior in the classroom is going wild, and now with cell phones, it's really hard. And parents are on top of us these days, and it's really hard. I was like, great. It sounds like we have a top three problem. I saw the emotional need. It's not like, yeah, I cannot take grading. No, it's like I hate it. You can't
Mhm.
even imagine. It's a bane of my existence, right? And so
Mhm.
I felt there was an emotional reason for CoGrader to exist. Wanted to check whether people were willing to pay for it. So I came back home. I was half living in Lisbon at the time, half between the US and Brazil. And then we decided to set up some ads on Facebook. These ads went to a landing page that went to a Calendly. In a week, I spent, I think, $1,000 and got like 18 teachers to book a call on my agenda. Yeah, and out of these 18 teachers, this was a simple landing page. Like we did all of this, like from zero to meetings on my books. Maybe it was a full day of work. And of these 18 teachers, we sold to 10, no product. And that's when I really realized, okay, I've promised these people that I will build something for them that solves their pain point. I have put money, like almost like a in-person outbound Kickstarter,
Love it.
that they will do it. And so that's the moment when I became full time. This was exactly 2 years ago, July 2023. And then we launched our product a couple months later in September. Then UC Berkeley decided to back our company in October 2023. We moved to the Bay Area. And eventually we sold the first school about a year ago. And now we're in over 70 schools across 20 states, serving about 500,000 kids in our freemium model.
Wow. So I want to go back to that moment where you go from conference, you sit folks down, you find the pain. They are complaining. Did you do anything to quantify it, or was it just so obvious that like, hey, all these people hate this, that we've got to do it?
That's a great question. Do you mean quantifying the pain or quantifying the size of the market?
Quantify. I mean, first quantifying the pain, and then I'm kind of curious, how did you get to the pricing and figuring out what you were going to charge?
Yeah, lovely. So in terms of pain, I like as a former consultant, I pretty much like the five whys mindset. And
Hmm.
so, what keeps you up at night? This is like, okay, so you mentioned grading. How does that feel? And I would just listen to them talk, and they would talk about this for 5 minutes. I would just go in silence, like, I hear you. Oh, wow, really? That sounds painful. And when I asked how long they spent grading, typically they would say anything from 5 to 10 hours a week. And I imagined that we could easily build a product, a teaching assistant for them that would at least help them get 80% there as a co-pilot.
Love it. When you put up the landing page, you said, I'm going to spend $1,000 on this landing page. You were targeting teachers directly?
We spent $1,000 on meta ads.
Yeah. Okay.
Targeting
And so
directly for them
perfect.
to pay for their personal use.
Did you pick a specific region, or was there any magic to it? Or was it just, let's put $1,000 into Meta and out comes our first customers?
Exactly that. As simple as, an ad's done super fast with as basic as a pain point, something like spend your Sundays grading, click here, and targeting US teachers as a whole.
Very interesting. So landing page, and how long did it take to get to the 18 meetings booked on your Calendly?
About a week. So it ran for a week and they booked 18 meetings for the next week.
And then you closed 10. I'm assuming you pre-sold 10. What did you pre-sell it for? What did that process look like? What was the promise? What did you tell them? It's $100, it's $5, it's $1. Like, what did you ask for? What are they getting for this?
I told them, like, look, I'm gonna work really hard on solving your pain point. I promise. And we're gonna be launching our beta product in a couple months in September. It was July at the time, and it's gonna be a couple $100 a year, which, by the way, turned out to be true, but that was my guess. But you can get it right now for X, and that X kept changing. So the first, I think, like 3 we sold at $10. Okay. Then I sold the next 3 at $20. So I was telling them it's gonna cost $200. You're paying $20 right now. If you stripe your credit card, it's a cappuccino in Manhattan. What is $20? And maybe you get to save your Sundays for the rest of the year next year. Plus, you're gonna join this, exquisite group of beta, innovative teachers who are excited to try new stuff. It's the summer. You're looking into this, and they were just excited, I think, by the idea of making Grader fairer. And saving their Sundays.
Amazing.
So it went from 10 to 20 to 30, and then I blocked at 40. I must be honest. I failed like 3 or 4 times when I was at 9 sales, and I was like, I want to make the number nice and round. So I did another $30, and we did 10. 40 didn't work for some reason. That was above what people were willing to pay for. I really just blocked on 40. 30 was fine.
Yeah, that's a really interesting kind of level to hit. The $10 doesn't matter to you, like they're getting an insane deal regardless. What you're looking for really is the proof points.
Exactly. Yeah.
Go ahead.
I wasn't expecting at the time. I was very impressed. My goal was to sell 1.
I think founders get a lot of like bad advice about early sales. Everybody says you got to go sell. And then you also you read Saster and Jason Lemkin's posts saying startups aren't charging enough. And so you get all these new founders and they're like, trying to get their first 10. They're like, how much does it cost? They're like $200,000 plus a $50,000 onboarding fee. And you're like, that only works for founders that are
and you want to pay up for 3 years.
Totally. So $750, please. I absolutely love that you started with $10 and $20 and $30. Like the money is absolutely meaningless. It didn't even pay back the ad spend, but it's the proof points that gave you the confidence to jump in there. And I think that's such an important piece to highlight, that it's about the momentum. I imagine selling into schools. I've worked with a number of clients that it's extremely cyclical. There's kind of the summer craziness, and then there's the end of the year craziness. You find it the same with CoGrader?
Our sales cycles have not met at all what we were told. And so I'm not from the K-12 space. I didn't even grow up in the US. And so I wasn't even a student in American schools. And so we had to learn everything from scratch. I feel that one of the things that our team has is that we do an insane amount of experiments. We're always experimenting stuff and learning from that. And what we learned is that actually, if you frame it as something they should buy right now, they buy right now. And so we haven't really seen a big cyclical movement, but this also has to do with the fact that it's more often than not schools buying us because it comes from word of mouth of the teachers. So teachers find us through other teachers and through SEO. And then through the teachers, we help them bring this to their school. I mean, we're in an interesting situation. Our sales cycle, I think our average sales cycle is probably around 2 months. So it's not too bad. But in general, I feel the market itself in education right now is at an interesting point. where on one hand, there were like the COVID years, there was ESSER funds that flooded EdTech companies. And so there's founder friends of mine that, went from 3 million to 30 million in 2 years type thing. And those funds ended exactly when I did my first sale. And so since then, education has been in a crisis mode. Everyone's crunching their projects, taking out projects now. So I'm a crisis baby. I only know crisis, which in a way is nice because I didn't plan for a different future. This is the future I have. On the other hand, there's a huge trend that's helping us, which is a year ago, there was so much skepticism on AI. People were afraid of losing their jobs. Now they're like, okay, this is the new calculator. We got to do it, whether we want it or not. And so the approach has completely changed. Acceptance in schools has gone from one side of the spectrum to the other in a space of a year.
Interesting. Talk to me about the moment you realized you had product market fit.
That's a great question. I think there were, I feel, 4 validation moments in the journey. The first one was talking to those teachers and hearing an emotional response I haven't heard before. And Collin, I've done customer discovery before. I've sat down with a lot of people asking them mom test questions. Mm-hmm. The second moment was when we got people to open up their wallets for us. That was July 23. I think the third moment, and this is going to sound super odd, but it felt like such an interesting victory also, when in December that year, we actually charged for a product people were already using. So eventually we gave out the products for free for a while, attract as many users, and surprise December, here's an offer, Christmas offer. It's going to start being paid in December, in January, buy an annual subscription right now. And like, boom, just like, I don't know, 50 subscriptions or something. And so that felt amazing. Like they paid for a pain point, but now they paid for a product.
Yeah. That's incredible. I remember sorry, go ahead.
I was saying that still was teachers directly. And then the fourth validation point was when we sold the first school, but that was July last year. And I think it started to feel good about a couple months later, because 1 became 3 the next month, and then 5 new schools. And I was like, okay, 8 reps. This is something's happening.
You're always chasing the dragon though. Like I remember, I'm like, I'll be happy when I get my first 10. And then I got my first 10. I was like, I'll be happy when I get to $1 million ARR. And I got to $1 million ARR and I'm like, I'll be happy when, and it just kept going. It just kept going. And like, I don't know where you are on that journey, but like whatever the next milestone is, just like take a minute, take a day and be like, we're going to celebrate this day. Last question for you. What comes next?
Lovely question. Something I talk about with my co-founders a lot is like, let's keep up the experiment mindset. And I'm very comfortable on the idea of betting the company on something, if that makes sense. I love the stories of like Netflix and all those people that at a certain point realized we're gonna, it's risky to do something new and bet our company something new. It's very risky to stay. And I think with the age of AI, it's very present to me how it's a joke if you can tell me what's going to happen in 10 years. It's a joke. It's an absolute 10 years. It's a joke. Maybe 5 years, we can have some conversations. And so I try not to think too much of a long-term horizon. And for us in the short term is really turning what I think the founders did for a second and training people to do the different parts of our jobs, right? So getting really the sales ramped up to do what I was doing, getting the CSM to do what I was doing there. And as the company grows, just growing and changing those routines where, now information isn't perfect and all of the consequences of going from tiny and micro to small.
Yeah, I love that. I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your story. I feel like we could have done 3 hours today, but we only booked an hour. And so I want to thank you. If people are looking to learn more about CoGrader or they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach out?
I'm off social media, so the best and probably only way to reach out is LinkedIn. You can find me at Gil Quadros Flores and CoGrader. If you're a teacher, just go right online, CoGrader.com. Tell your aunts, tell your sisters, tell your brothers. I promise you from the bottom of my heart, this is going to be an absolute change maker in their lives, and they're going to thank you to the end of the world.
Amazing. Well, thank you to you for coming on the show. I really enjoyed hearing your story.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Collin. Have a good one.
And thanks to you too. And thanks to everybody for listening. We'll catch y'all next time.